So, hello everybody, welcome to this live session where I'm going to be talking about this topic. Is it possible to recover more quickly and easily? To put it another way, is it possible to heal without making it hard work? So if you are watching live, do say hello, let me know in the chat. If you're watching the replay, just put hashtag replay. So all of what I'm going to share is said with love. So it's without self-blame, self-judgment. Clients and myself recognize some of these patterns that I'm going to be talking about. So if you like this video, do leave a comment, do like, subscribe, do share the video. Helps others find it. And it's completely fine if you want to disagree with anything I say, okay? You know, it's fine for you. I really encourage discussion and debate that's done in a, constructive way. So feel free to share your thoughts. I might learn something from you, okay? So core premise is that your body has a huge capacity to heal, okay? And stress, including psychological stress, hinders recovery. So it's really important to explore what we can do to reduce stress. Obviously, some things are beyond our control, but there are things that we can influence. So one caveat is obviously that sometimes people need medical intervention. I made a video this week about a poor young woman called Millie who is in a hospital in England, and they're not understanding that mecfs is a very real physical condition. So she's not getting the treatment she needs, and she is in desperate need of appropriate treatment, including a feeding tube. So do watch that video if you feel as strongly as I do about the mistreatment of people with mecfs. Then check that video out, and there are some links, a petition to sign, a Facebook group to join if you'd like to kind of discuss this topic further about how we can help people who are not being given the care that they need. So the first thing I want to explore is, if we think about that question, how can we heal without making it hard work? My notion is that we flip that question and consider the question, what can make recovery hard? And if I put my hand on my heart, I recognize that I made recovery harder than it needs to be. And asking this question can offer clues as to what can make things easy. So I see a couple of people just joined. Do feel free to say hello. Let me know you can see me and hear me. Let me know where you are in the world. So as I mentioned, this is without self-blame, without judgment. It is with love, okay? Obviously, there are things that we can't control, but we can, for instance, if people are behaving in challenging ways, we can't control that, but we can influence how we respond. So for me, it's important to ask the question, consider the question, what are the mistakes that people make? And it's also important to consider we don't all make the same mistakes, all right? So it's important to kind of consider this and to look at how this applies to you, which things do apply, which things don't apply to you. So for example, one mistake I see people making is trying to be in control, okay? And there's three things that they do here. They try and fix, they fight, and they forget. So let's talk about what I mean there. So fixing, some people I talk to, they've read every book on healing, but they're still stressed. They're still in a stress state. They're impatient, they're frustrated, and that is hindering their healing. Some people are literally kind of, their approach to healing is they're doing it 24/7. They are really trying hard to heal. They're working really hard. They're overthinking, is this working? Or they're chasing symptoms, taking medications, supplements. I know I've talked to people who are literally on lots of medications, lots of supplements. And when I ask them, with the medications, are you aware of the side effects of the drugs you're taking? And we look up some of the side effects. Some of the side effects, which are common, are causing the things that they're trying to get rid of. Okay. I've literally spoken to people who are taking like 20 supplements. Okay. Now, Katie says spot on. Feel free to let me know what you're referring to there. Was it those comments that I've just made? It doesn't mean we ignore symptoms, because sometimes we have to address symptoms, but we also need to consider root causes. Okay. Some of the other things that show up if we're in that fix mode is trying to be perfectionist, trying to get everything right. Some people are too serious. They're a bit obsessive about the healing. I've had people ask me the question, should I leave my family for 3 months and go on a retreat? Now, I would say it's fine to have a break, but, ultimately we need to be able to deal with the challenges of life, and therefore we need to have the tools and resources to do that. Okay. So that's fixing, fighting. Some people, I remember working with a client, and the kind of imagery came to me of a clenched fist, because it was like this person was so tight that, it was very hard for their body to heal. Okay, because they were in such a, they're kind of mentally and physically, they were very tight. And, some people kind of push through all the time. They absolutely refuse to stop. They don't want to have this condition limit them in any way, and I completely understand that. However, that's not always a helpful approach. Some people say, if I stop, if I rest, then I'll never get up. Now, that is patently not true, okay? It might be if they stop and they rest, they're going to realize how tired they are, okay? And that might be a important piece of information that they need to take a different approach. Some people literally dose themselves up on caffeine or medication, and it's only when they have to stop taking the medication because of the side effects, they realize how frazzled they are, how exhausted they are. Okay, because their kind of approaches, I've got to keep going. So as I say, it's very much fighting the condition. That is not putting the body in a healing state. And then the third F, so fix, fight. The third F is forget. They forget about their body and the needs of their body. They forget, some people tell me, I forget to eat, I forget to drink. I'm never going to forget to eat, because I love my food, and I actually, don't do well if I go too long without eating. All right. But some people literally say they forget about eating and drinking. All right. Some people say, I have to rush to the loo because I'm so out of touch with my body. Suddenly I realize I need to go to the loo. Some people forget about their emotional needs, and some people forget about their own inner power. Okay. And that is a resource. Okay. So that's the first thing. The second kind of core mistake is completely ignoring the mind-body connection, the fact that our mind does affect our body. The third kind of mistake people make is not knowing and addressing your personal hindrances, okay? The things that are personal to you that are getting in the way of your body healing. So feel free to let me know in the chat, what are the things that you think are kind of hindering your recovery, that are things that you can influence, okay? The things, if you like, they're hurdles that you're putting in the way. So for example, I'll give you a few examples of mine. One was that I did boom and bust. Two, that's something that was at one point, as soon as I had energy, I would do too much. I would kind of not think about what's a reasonable amount of activity to do. So I'd use more energy than I had, and then I'd crash. So that's the first thing. The second thing is that I was really good at repressing and suppressing my emotions. Okay. Thank you for the like. So what was another one? I suppose another one was that at a certain point I knew that going to bed early was really good for me. When I did that, I felt so much better. But it took me a long time before I actually really took that on board and got into the habit of going to bed at a time that worked for me. Okay, so what about you? Let me know. So I've talked a bit about kind of being in control. For some people, they have the opposite issue, that their life isn't structured at all, and it's more veering towards chaotic. Now, that was me at one point. Okay, my approach to dealing with mecfs was not very pragmatic. It wasn't very structured. It was very chaotic. 2 of 2 so far, says Katie. So other patterns: people pleasing, putting others before ourselves, generating self-doubt, doubt in our ability to make decisions that are going to support our healing. Again, that was something I was very good at. Self-sabotage. Okay, self-sabotage is a sign that we're experiencing some trauma. It could be big T trauma or small t trauma. Okay, another way we can get in our own way, which is something I've just mentioned, is knowing what's going to help us, but not doing it. And we need to get to the roots of that, of what's stopping us from kind of getting the fundamentals right. I have created a guide called the 5 Fundamental Guide, which is just a really simple guide to get you to think about those things you can do that are in your control, that can make a difference. And I'm actually going to be doing an interview with Dr. Eleanor Stein. Some of you may have come across her. And one thing she talks about is that, you know, the research shows that getting the fundamentals right is really important. Okay, so, and you know, I've talked to many clients, when I ask them the simple question, what time do you go to bed? They say, few more likes, thanks very much. They say, oh, I go to bed 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock. And then they're trying to deal with their fatigue. And if I was going to bed at 1 or 2 o'clock, I would be feeling fatigue. In fact, before I got sick, I was routinely going to bed at midnight, and I was always exhausted the next day, and I was always hitting the snooze alarm. I never hit the snooze alarm now. I don't think I've even got an alarm at the moment. I wake up naturally, normally quite early, 6:30, and I'm ready to go. There was a time where I thought waking up before 7 o'clock was just rude. But now I really love waking up early. Sometimes I get to see the sunrise when I open the curtains, amazing pink skies. So consider that, you know, we've got to address the fundamentals. Okay, some people are looking for magic fixes, but they're not addressing the simple stuff that can make a difference. So let's look at some solutions. And if you've just joined, feel free to say hello, say where you are. So there's kind of 3 areas I want to talk about. First is identifying and addressing the root causes. Now, this is going to be different for different people, but one common area is that if there are no underlying issues that have been identified, of course that might be due to the limitations of, you know, general medical practice. However, it's important to consider, is nervous system dysregulation an issue here? Is that hindering my body's ability to heal? So KT says breakout of boom and bust seems like a mystery. Okay, so that's something I'm happy to explore further. I have made videos about beating boom and bust, and what I would say is it's not a mystery when you understand what's driving your patterns. Okay, in terms of nervous system dysregulation, the roots of that are often in childhood. We experience distress, we don't get our needs met. This causes us stress. This causes us to develop adaptive beliefs and behaviors. For example, okay, I didn't get my needs met, that's because I'm not lovable. So the adaptive behavior might be perfectionism, overachieving in order to get that love. Okay, so that's the first thing. We need to explore what are the root causes. Second, we need to learn to let go of being in control. Okay, a sign that we're being in control or trying to be in control is when we're in our head. And there's a sorry, gone to the wrong place. There's a slide. So I've talked about that already. Did I talk about that? Some people spend their whole time focusing on healing to the exclusion of everything else. Okay, I like this quote: "For peace of mind, resign as general manager of the universe." So put a yes in the chat if that describes you. Have you tried to be in control of everything? That certainly was me at one point. That was my way of trying to feel safe, is trying to control everything. Okay, not liking it when other people misbehaved. Okay, I can remember a time when I was in recovery. I was training to be a practitioner of a program that people who have mecfs do. I can't mention it according to my contract now that I'm no longer a practitioner, but the first word rhymes with frightening. I went to Wales to observe another practitioner, and on the Saturday night we went to a party, and we were up till 1-2 in the morning. The next day, it was this lovely party in the middle of the countryside in this beautiful house, and next day we drove back, had some lunch in a pub, and then got back to my friend's house. And I was like, oh, I'm feeling a bit tired, but maybe I shouldn't rest, because I'm in recovery and all this sort of stuff. My friend sat down on the sofa and fell asleep. All right. And what I realized is I was too much in my head. Okay. So we need to get out of our head, get into our body. Okay. If I'd done that, I would have noticed, well, actually, I'm tired, and allowed myself to fall asleep, which is what I did when I saw my friend was asleep. Okay. We also need to reconnect to our body, reconnect to our emotions. And it can be a learned behavior that we suppress, repress our emotions, and we don't address our emotional needs. Dr. John Sarno talks about that in his book, Mind Body Prescription. And he says that suppression of our emotions, including frustration, anger, rage, can drive our symptoms. Okay, and it can drive our behaviors. What it means is that if we are repressing or suppressing our emotions, then energy isn't available for healing. All right, I remember meeting this woman. I went to a yoga workshop, and I met this woman, got chatting. I told her I had ME at the time, and she said, I had ME/CFS, and I completely healed. And I said, how did you do that? She said, I learned to work with my emotions. And at the time, even though I was trained as a counsellor, I was a bit baffled by that. And on reflection, I really, I asked her some questions about that, but I really should have pursued that further, and we lost touch. But, she obviously had some insights which took me much longer to learn. But what I've learned is that when we learn how to connect to our emotions, how to identify our emotions, how to process our emotions, how to express them in appropriate ways, that can help the body heal. That can release a lot of energy. Okay, so, and the key is appropriate expression. Some people, as I say, repress or suppress their emotions. Some people vent. That's not actually good for your health either. But learning to express our emotions in appropriate, skillful ways is very powerful. It's very healing for us, and it can help build connection. So, and this is something I teach people in my Building Resilience course. Just so you know, I'm going to be starting a new course in April, and I just today made the bold decision that normally people you can access the course as an online course. I've decided that you can purchase the online course, but I'm actually going to give you 12 weeks of group coaching. So if you're interested in that, comment group in the chat and I'll send you details. All right. So third thing is we need to just focus on the process, not the goal. We need to identify the goal. I'm all in favor of having a wildly important goal, to establish what that goal is, and then we focus on the process. All right. That means that we're kind of focusing on the journey. All right. So this means we're doing it in a way that's balanced and sustainable. And rather than making it, that we're working super hard, sorry, onto the wrong thing. Spending all our time focusing on healing activities, we have an approach that is more sustainable. And an important concept to consider is Pareto's Law. If you know what Pareto's Law is, let me know in the chat. It involves two numbers that add up to 100. Any guesses? So Pareto's Law is the 80-20 rule. And what it says is that, and this Pareto was an economist, and he noticed that 80% of the results were due to 20% of the effort. I'll come back to that question. So, this concept shows up in many areas, but it is the idea that 20% of what we do make the difference, okay, to 80% of the results, okay? So trying to heal 100%, focusing on healing 100% of the time is actually not a healthy approach. I came up with this acronym, JFC. Any ideas what JFC stands for? Which is the antidote to, spending all your time trying to heal. Okay. Any guesses what JFC stands for? It stands for joy, fun, and connection. So instead of having our focus being 100% on healing activities, it's important to have a more balanced approach. So yeah, we might spend some time, as I say, embracing Pareto's Law. We might spend some time on those healing practices. And for example, if I'm working with a client who's feeling overwhelmed by, I've got all these techniques, and this is something people say to me, I've got all these strategies, I don't know where to start. We just focus on 3. And we also look at the balance of their day. You know, where in your day are you having joy? Where in your day are you, you know, participating in something you love, something you're passionate about? Let me know in the chat, what is one thing that you're passionate about? Okay, one, you know, I'm passionate about learning to play the piano at the moment. So I've bought a piano for my friend, and it brings me a lot of joy to just spend 5 minutes every day on the piano. All right. So what is something you can do, even if your energy is limited? It might just be for 1 minute. We need connection. We need to have a sense of purpose. You know, a little project, if you like. We need the fun. We need to do some movement to the ability that we can. If you can't do much movement, then focus on doing some visualization of doing movement, because that helps strengthen our muscles. Maybe we have to do some of the boring stuff, but we can mix it up with stuff that's more fun. You know, I'm also passionate about learning, so I do spend some time reading books. I'm doing a course at the moment. So it's really important to think about that, to think about how we can create some balance in our day. And in terms of connection, there are two things to consider. One is connecting to yourself, connecting to that part of you that is wise. Consider that that wise you is always there. Okay, you might not be connected to that part at the moment or much of the time, but that part of you is there. I was working with someone earlier today, and you know, they got a reminder of this, that they have got this innate wisdom and they weren't tapping into it. Okay, you need to be your own cheerleader, and if you're not quite at that point where you are your own cheerleader, then just know that you can develop that capability. It is something I teach people, how to be your own coach, so that I ultimately make myself dispensable. So you know, my goal is when a client says to me, "Yeah, I'm good. I don't need you. You've taught me, and I'm you know, I know what to do now." All right. And it's always fine if people feel like they need help, so there's no shame in that. But that's my goal, is to make myself dispensable. So we need connection with ourselves. We also need connection with others. All right. That's how we co-regulate. That's how we help. That being with others, in connection with others in a way that feels safe, that feels good, is how we achieve co-regulation. We have that sense of playfulness. So yesterday, or actually the day before, I had a Zoom call with a friend. We had a chat, and we always end the call. We usually spend about an hour, and the last 15 minutes we play this online game called Puzz Grid. So look it up. All right. So ultimately, I invite you to really, if we just go back to that slide a moment, is for you to kind of design your day. You know, so I was working with someone recently. Again, they didn't really have any idea about how to structure their day. They felt a bit overwhelmed. So we just looked at, okay, what are the things you want to do? And they said, oh, actually, I want to spend some time doing some movement. I want to spend some time playing the piano because they're a musician. I want to spend some time meditating. I want to obviously eat. And we put into their schedule roughly what time they go to bed, what time they wake up. And, you know, they were really enthused and said, this is, you know, this has been really helpful to just structure the day in a very loose way. The antidote to being too structured, or on the other end of the scale, being too chaotic, is finding that place in the middle. If you think about a tent has the structure of the old-fashioned tents anyway, have the poles, and then there's the canvas, which is more flexible. Okay, some people are naturally more intuitive, and you know, so for them to be too structured is not good, and they generally not chaotic because they just approach things in a intuitive way. But some people need that balance. For me personally, I need a bit of intuition and I need a little bit of structure. Okay, as I said, my old tendency was to be a bit chaotic. All right, and ultimately I realized that didn't work for me. So Let me pause there. I invite you just to, if you like, take a breath, maybe close your eyes for a moment, only if it's safe to do so. And obviously don't close your eyes if it's not safe to do so. And just take a breath. Breathe in through your nose, into your belly. As you breathe out through your nose, as long as that's comfortable, just allow your out breath to be a little longer than your in breath. And I invite you just to consider that there is that part of you that is wise. That part of you has the capacity for supervision. That part of you has the capacity to spot patterns. Once you're aware of the pattern, you can explore strategies to shift that pattern. I invite you to consider times when that wise part of you showed up, where you just responded to a challenging situation in resourceful ways. I invite you to consider that you can pause whenever you choose. Take a breath and just remind yourself of this wise part of you. So if you like, you can carry on relaxing with your eyes closed and open them when you're ready. Or you can open them now and just let me know how you found that. Doing a brief relaxation literally for 2 minutes. And I'll just go to this question. Could you describe how the perfect recovery person looks like, behaves? So hopefully from what I've shared, you've got more of an idea of that. But let me play with your question and I'll give you some thoughts about that. So, for example, you know, if I had ME/CFS now, and actually back in October I did get kind of flu-like symptoms, and what was interesting is my approach was very different to when I had ME/CFS. So I did just allow myself to rest when I needed to. I was kind of still working, but you know, when I was doing creating content, you know, when I wasn't seeing clients, I just approached the work in a much more intuitive way. As well, when I'm well, I'm just like, okay, I'm gonna work for 50 minutes, have a 20-minute break, work for another 50 minutes. When I had the kind of flu symptoms, I was just, actually, I've done 20 minutes. I feel a bit tired now. I'm just going to close my eyes for a minute. And I might have fallen asleep, and you know, that might have been for 15 minutes or half an hour. And then I'd do some more work. I'd also spend some time just tuning in to my emotions. In terms of structuring my day, I have a few little routines. So when I wake up in the morning, I lie in bed and I meditate. I do this time out relaxation technique. If you like that, then comment time in the chat. I'll send you the link. I visualize my day, and then I get up, make a drink and do some movement. And normally I aim to spend about an hour and a quarter doing movement, physical activity, some stretching, some weights, some qigong, then I go out for a walk in the park. I think a key notion I want to put across is to just move away from that idea of perfect and to design the approach that works for you, because what works for me might be different to what works for you. But, you know, just to give you an example, at one point I'd wake up in the morning and I'd just scroll on Facebook, and sometimes half an hour or an hour would pass. All right. And I realized that that's not how I wanted to start my day. I wanted to start my day in a much more proactive way. All right. And two final elements, and maybe I'll leave you with these questions. Two final elements is I think about what time I'm going to finish eating and what time I go to bed, and making sure that that gap between finishing eating and going to bed is as big as possible. At the moment, I'm aiming for finishing eating at 7 o'clock, going to bed at 10 o'clock. Don't always achieve either of those, but that's my goal because I like waking up early. And I know my body really likes going to bed earlier rather than later. All right. So two questions for you to consider. What is one thing you could stop doing that would give you the biggest benefit? So for me, I guess one of my things is one of the things that it's something I've really worked on is when I feel some emotion, frustration, upset, not to go into distraction, but to sit with it, to ground myself rather than go into distracting behaviors which deplete my energy. That was a big pattern for me. What's one thing you can start doing or keep doing to support your healing? As I say, for me, my number one thing is what time I go to bed. All right. So 2 questions for you to consider. What's one thing you can stop doing that's going to give you the biggest bang for your buck? Number 2, what's one thing you can start or continue doing to support your healing? So I hope that gives you food for thought. Thank you for joining me. As I say, if you're watching on YouTube, do like, subscribe, check out my playlists. If you'd like to know more about the Building Resilience course, type the word group and I'll send you the details. We'll be starting in April. So thanks for watching. Wishing you great health. Just remember that your body does have incredible capacity to heal. I see people making amazing changes every week. All right. So I believe that's possible for you too. So keep up the great work. Bye for now.